Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Revo Shorty. You're going to review Escape right now, which is a comic book from last week, but due to the bank holidays we have every once in a while in England, it means I have no comic books right now from this week to review, so, they're on their way. But it just means I have some time, and I meant to review this one, but then I read Detective Comics 100, and that one totally took over what I was thinking about. But I did read this last week and want to talk about it, because there's a whole bunch I really did like. There's some fantastic moments, both in artistic direction and storytelling, which are worth talking about, but there's also some stuff where it didn't quite work for me, and unfortunately to get that across I am going to be dealing with some spoilers. I'm not going to try to go too deep into individual actions and what happens to individual characters, but there's an overarching kind of thing that happens, especially near the end of it, which unless I tell you what that is, I'm not going to be able to get across why it didn't quite work for me, so apologies. Feel free, if you don't want spoilers, wander off, go have some time, have a snack. This video will still be here when you finish, wherever you have found this video. So, Escape is a two-fisted action-adventure war story, in Remender's own words, and I don't really mind those too much, but unfortunately, they tend to fall into that trap of making war look kind of cool. I reviewed Planet Death not that long ago, and we had a similar kind of conversation, well, I had a similar kind of conversation to whoever you are out there, about this idea that there's a male power fantasy, that one man behind enemy lines, being able to do hugely impressive things and change the course of human history. And what we know from actual history is it's far more down to communities and organisations and groups of people doing stuff together which affects real change. And frustratingly, it doesn't start like that. This issue 1 has a huge amount of pages at the beginning, which is an awful lot of expositional setup by the characters, but it also tells you that this is not going to be a simple down-the-line war story. It also looks fantastic. Before we get too far into that one, I've got to say, Daniel Acuna does an absolutely fantastic job here. It's got a very Eurocomic kind of style to it. There is no outlining on the panels in the guttering. It just fades into white, and they're quite wide gutters. I actually really quite like this. It just makes, sometimes when something terrible is happening, that cleanness to it makes it stand out that little bit more. Throw in the fact that we have an awful lot of anthropomorphic, humanised characters in this one, it would be quite easy for the creators to have, like, well, okay, this is this type of animal, and as humans, we put these kind of personality traits on it, and that will be who this character is. And you could draw it that way and write it that way. You could have them doing non-verbal communication and conversing with each other using those very basic lines. But they don't. They actually have a lot more fun with it. They give each person their own individual nature, which I really enjoy. And it doesn't mean we're falling into stereotypes, which is good because in this world, the Nazis are bats. And I don't know exactly how that connection was made, but I like the fact that it's not obvious. If you go back and read stuff like Black Sad, there is Nazis who are all white animals, and it feels like, or fascists, should I say, who are all white animals, and it feels like that's just a little bit more straight down the line. This one goes a little bit more complex, and I do enjoy it for that. And then when we get to do some of the action sequences, Acuna absolutely nails this as well, and it is brutal. This is like absolutely unforgiving horrors of war, not on the ground so much, but a dogfight, but still the amount of carnage that can be wrought when this kind of thing is going on. And it ends with, as I say, an almost power fantasy-esque thing of somebody behind enemy lines. Now, sometimes that has bothered me a little bit more. Planet Death got away with it for me, I think, because there was quite a lot of setup leaning into exactly what was going to be happening here. If you read the issue 0, it set that up really effectively. And I think you can do it in ways which could still tell an interesting story. Don't get me wrong, I think there's some movies specifically out there which don't bother doing anything else with it other than being like, oh, this is the random guy's job that is now going to go off and murder 20 gang members for whatever reason we've decided is important today. But you can do more interesting things with it, and I do think Escape has that chance because of how much we spend in that opening few pages talking about some of the more complex issues around warfare. I think the reason why all people will go to World War II for this kind of story is there's a far more clean-cut good and bad guy situation, and it means a lot of moralising can be put to one side, at least temporarily. So don't get me wrong, there are people who absolutely would not do that. There's a lot of pacifists and people who would not join in. I absolutely respect them for making choices they made, but it seems like this is the easier war to be like, yeah, okay, no conscious objections, let's just go in and do it because this guy is a bad guy who's done a whole bunch of terrible things. But we still have stories about, like, the people on the ground. I mean, there's a phrase I saw a long time ago saying the first country the Nazis invaded was Germany. And there's an awful lot of people within even the German army, soldiers go off, who literally have the choice between watching their family murdered, tortured, and a whole bunch of terrible things happening on the way to that, and then dying themselves, or joining up, being given a gun and hoping like hell they can survive. And there's a lot of very interesting conversation in that opening bit about what kind of lines people would have, how willing we are to do things to each other in this kind of situation, how we can justify it. And all that at the opening makes me think there's going to be more to it. That Remender set this up so, for all of it looking like and playing out through so many beats as a two-fisted war story, and is absolutely action-packed and full of peril and fun and excitement, there is going to be more going on to it. And I really hope that when I carry on reading it, I'm going to get that payoff. I hope I do anyway. That's it for me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.